Problem of practice. Organizations are failing in their efforts to provide effective training to their organizational leadership. Now, this failure of leadership training usually manifests itself in an organization's employee turnover rate, low employee job satisfaction, and low employee engagement. Purpose of study. The purpose of the study was to discover if transformational leadership theory is being taught to organizational leaders. I had to explore the trainer's motivation, knowledge, and organizational influences related to the trainer's ability to design and deliver training that aligns with transformational leadership theory. Research questions. The research questions studied in this research are as follows. Number 1. What is the leadership trainer's knowledge and motivation to design and deliver leadership training that aligns with TLT principles? Number 2. How do the organizational and external influences impact leadership trainers' knowledge and motivation to provide leadership training? Methodology. This study employed a mixed method sequential approach, first using a quantitative survey followed up by a qualitative interview instrument. First, the use of a survey was used to gather information on TLT training from a broad view of leadership trainers in various organizations. This survey served as a recruitment tool for more in-depth interviews. The use of the survey is to gather cross-sectional data of leadership trainers from one point in time. The qualitative interview was used to gather detailed information on training as it relates to TLT. The interview information provided open-ended versions of the questions found in the survey to expose more details in the training currently done in the organizations. The interview portion of the research was a semi-structured approach to tailor the questions to trainers from different types of organizations. The interview consisted of similar questions as the survey. Follow-up questions were used to elicit more detailed information from the leadership trainers. Results and findings. The first discovery was that organizational trainers are not using an overall leadership theory to guide their training. The training that is conducted is based on common leadership skills such as listening and clear communication. Now, other skills that the trainers felt were important for the leaders to have, such as empathy and trust between the leader and employee, in a formal manner. For example, empathy and trust, or keeping employees intellectually stimulated without overwhelming them, were not taught in a formal, structured training session. They were taught in more of an ad hoc manner. The interview participants revealed that their organizations really did not have a goal of what leadership skills or what a leader looked like in their organization. Overall, there was no set goal for a leadership standard in any of the organizations. The key leadership skills of transformational leadership theory are of empathy, trust, listening, clear communications, individual skill training, and keeping employees intellectually stimulated without overwhelming them. Now, these were not being taught in any purposeful way. The important method in transformational leadership theory is how each of the leadership skills are intertwined with each other and also build on each other to provide a comprehensive leadership training strategy. Throughout the interviews, it became very clear that the trainer's motivation was very, very high. Interviewees commented that it was their own responsibility to learn new information on leadership theories and on new training practices, and did not really expect the organization to provide any significant amount of time for their continual training. But if the trainers did feel it was of an importance to obtain the additional training, they would approach their organization explaining to them why they needed the training, why the organization should provide the funds and time for them to get this training. The organizational influence that was a surprise to discover was the amount of time the trainers wanted senior leadership to be involved with the training sessions. Now, each of the interviewees described instances when senior leadership was present in training sessions. They all reported that those training sessions were some of the best training they conducted, and that the commitment to implementing the leadership skills being taught in those sessions was very high after the training. On the other hand, each of the interviewees shared training sessions when no senior leadership was present. The interviewees reported that the training participants treated the training more as something that had to be done and that needed to just get through. The participants in the training often would give responses that were correct, but resulted in little to no implementation of the leadership skills into their daily activities. The most common roadblock to effective leadership training, according to my study's participants, was getting that senior leadership participation. When the leadership trainers approached senior leadership to join in the training, the trainers were often either told the senior leadership was too busy or that they didn't need to be involved in such training. Recommendations. Recommendation number 1, instruct trainers on the use of transformational leadership theory. The study participants indicated that they were not familiar with transformational leadership theory. They were familiar with the individual skills found in TLT, such as empathy, trust, listening, clear communications, individualizing employee training, and intellectually challenging employees without overwhelming them. But they did not understand how all these skills were interconnected and how building empathy and trust would help with listening, clear communications, and developing individualized employee training. Also, using transformational leadership theory as the foundation of the leadership training within an organization also gives a clear leadership goal for the trainers to meet and an expectation for senior leadership to judge and evaluate their junior leadership. Recommendation number 2, obtain senior leadership buy-in to participate with training sessions. The participants expressed that their senior leadership did not participate in leadership training sessions. The participants that did have senior leadership participation in the past described the training to be more effective than when that senior leadership was not participating in the training sessions. The data collected in this study, as well as previous research, demonstrates that training sessions improve when senior leaders are in attendance. Leadership trainers should inform senior leadership that training efficacy will increase if the senior leader is willing to participate in the training. Recommendation 3, clearly defined leadership skill level outlined by the organization. This study indicated that though the organization expected leaders to improve their skills, they did not explain the skills that the individual leaders should possess. The participants in the study did not have any specific leadership skills they were expected to teach. The trainers did express their individual why or the goal they had for each of their training sessions. What the participants called the why, or their goal and purpose of the leadership training, the organization involved in training has been lost or minimized over time. The organizational leaders and trainers need to identify precisely the goal and purpose for the leadership skills. Transformational leadership theory describes a minimum set of skills every leader should develop. Leaders proficient in TLT are able to effectively demonstrate empathy, trust, listening, clear communications, teaching how to develop individual employee skill training, and keeping employees intellectually challenged without overwhelming them. The organization should have a clearly stated expectation of the skills their leaders should obtain and the expected level of proficiency.